1 in 63 East Germans was an informant for the Stasi. If you lived in East Germany, someone in your life was reporting on you. Your co-worker, your neighbour, maybe your spouse. But that was only the bottom of the system. Because some informants did not stay informants. They climbed. A few names in a notebook became files. Files became arrests. Arrests became promotions. And by the time you reached the top, you were no longer just feeding the machine. You were part of the machine. This is the Stasi ladder. And unlike most ladders, this one does not ask whether you are ambitious. It asks whether you can betray, compartmentalize, obey, and keep functioning after other people disappear because of something you said. Level 1. The tap on the shoulder. You do not apply to become a Stasi informant. They choose you. It is East Berlin, 1975. There is a knock on your apartment door. 2 men in ordinary suits stand in the hallway. They show identification from the Ministry for State Security. They would like to talk. Just a conversation. They do not threaten you. Not directly. They talk about the Republic, about enemies who want to destroy socialism from within. They mention that your brother applied for an exit visa last year. They note that your son wants to study medicine and that university placements can be difficult. They ask whether anyone at work has been speaking carelessly about shortages, censorship, or the West. Then they ask the real question, will you help protect the state? You have 3 options. Refuse and watch doors quietly close for you and your family. Agree and become what they call an unofficial collaborator, or tell someone you trust, except in East Germany, trust itself has become dangerous. Most people said yes. By the mid-1970s, the Stasi had built an enormous network of unofficial informants layered on top of a massive official workforce. The density was the point. The system worked because people no longer knew where private life ended and surveillance began. You agree to help. They give you a code name. You sign a statement of commitment. They tell you this is patriotic duty, not espionage. Your first reports are small. Who complains in the factory break room? Who makes jokes about party officials? Who listens to Western radio? You meet your handler once a week in a cafe. He asks questions in a conversational tone while writing in a notebook. Then they escalate. There is a co-worker they want to understand better. Become closer to him. Invite him for drinks. Let him talk. He does. He complains about censorship. He mentions relatives in West Germany. He says out loud what many people only think. You pass it on. 2 weeks later, he vanishes from work. That is the real test. Can you betray someone and continue functioning? Can you go back to work, eat dinner, kiss your wife, and live as if the information you passed upward had no weight? Most informants never climb past this stage. They inform for years out of fear, ideology, vanity, or the small privileges the Stasi can provide. Better housing, better education prospects for their children, a sense of protection. But some informants show something more useful. They are observant, controlled, discreet, good at gaining trust without looking eager, good at separating what they do from who they imagine themselves to be. Your handler notices that in you. Level 2. The offer. After more than a year as an informant, you're invited to a different meeting. Not the cafe this time. A Stasi office in a building with no public sign. Corridors that smell like wax and cigarettes. A plain office with a desk, 2 chairs and a portrait on the wall. The man behind the desk gets to the point. The ministry wants to bring you in full time, a salary much higher than the factory, training, security, a career, but there is a cost. You will not discuss the work with anyone. Your family will be told you moved into government administration. Your friends will stop asking questions because you will stop being available. This is the hinge point of the ladder. As an informant, you can still pretend you are adjacent to the system. As an officer, you belong to it. The ministry begins evaluating you more aggressively. You continue your current assignment while starting preliminary training, surveillance awareness, tradecraft basics, categories of ideological enemies, how to spot citizens with Western contacts, how to read loneliness, resentment, shame, and ambition. Then comes the darker part, operational psychology. The Stasi studies pressure the way engineers study load-bearing structures, family, pride, humiliation, debt, sex, religion, weakness. Everyone has a seam somewhere. Your job is to find it and apply pressure without looking like pressure is being applied. 6 months pass. You have performed well, your reports remain strong, your cover holds. You have shown that you can obey instructions, keep secrets, and live comfortably with moral distance. The evaluation ends. You are accepted. Soon you will resign from the factory and disappear into full-time training. Your supervisor will shake your hand. Your co-workers may even celebrate for you. Some of them are people you have already been reporting on. You smile. You thank them. You leave. And in practical terms, your old life is over. Level 3. The officer. The training facility sits outside Berlin behind wire, concrete and layered security. 3 identity checks just to get inside. Barracks, classrooms, drill yards, locked archives. Everything communicates the same message. The ministry watches everyone, including its own future officers. You are issued a grey uniform and an officer rank. It is low, but it is still rank. That matters. Rank means the state has stopped using you as an outside source and started investing in you as an instrument. The curriculum is total. Ideology in the mornings, Marxism, Leninism, class struggle, the necessity of surveillance, the role of the security service in preserving socialism from internal collapse. Operational work in the afternoons. You learn how to follow someone without standing out. How to detect surveillance directed at you. How to enter apartments and offices without leaving obvious traces. How to install listening devices fast. How to photograph documents under time pressure. How to build personal files. And always interrogation theory, not crude brutality, something colder, isolation, exhaustion, confusion, contradiction. The goal is not to create a martyr. The goal is to make resistance feel pointless and confession feel like relief. By the middle of training, you are assigned a supervised field exercise. A teacher in Potsdam is suspected of circulating Western literature among students. You are told to gather evidence. You surveil him for 2 weeks. You photograph meetings. You identify contacts. You recruit one colleague to report on staff room conversations. You enter his apartment while he's at work. Hidden behind approved books, you find banned material from the West. Your report is precise. The instructors are pleased. The teacher is arrested soon after. You are not told what happens next because you are being trained to think the way the ministry thinks. Your responsibility is not to carry the moral burden of outcomes. Your responsibility is operational effectiveness. That is the transformation at this level. You are no longer just betraying people. You are learning how to stop seeing betrayal as betrayal. You graduate near the top of your class and are assigned to a district office. Now the system is no longer teaching you from the outside. Now it is using you. Level 4. The field operative. Leipzig is large enough to feel endless and small enough to map completely if you have enough files. Your district office monitors factories, churches, schools, housing blocks, hospitals, universities and cultural institutions. Nothing is too small to document if it reveals deviation. Your first assignment is in cultural surveillance. Writers, painters, musicians, theatre directors, people whose work might contain criticism too subtle for ordinary bureaucrats to notice, but not too subtle for the ministry to fear. You attend performances. You read manuscripts. You cultivate informants within artistic circles. You rarely need to arrest them. It is often enough to suffocate them. A denied permit here, a cancelled exhibition there, a publisher suddenly unavailable, a venue suddenly booked. In a surveillance state, repression does not always arrive in boots. Sometimes it arrives as administrative inconvenience repeated until a life shrinks around it. You are good at this work, which is not a compliment. Promotion follows. You move into more sensitive work, counter-espionage, West German networks, Western contacts, suspected recruitment channels. Now your targets are not just dissidents or artists. They are trained operators and cautious intermediaries. The work slows down and becomes more dangerous. You build cases patiently, tap phones, open letters, monitor travel patterns, recruit clerks, lovers, assistants, secretaries. You wait for small irregularities that reveal larger structures. Eventually, a suspect slips. An arrest team moves before dawn. The subject is disoriented, isolated, processed, interrogated. Weeks later, he breaks and gives up names, locations, methods. Your superiors are satisfied. You are promoted again. By now you have rank, authority, and a record of useful results. You do not walk like an informant anymore. You walk like a man who knows where invisible power lives. Level 5. The department head. Now the ladder becomes administrative, which only makes it more dangerous. You supervise officers. You review operations instead of carrying them out yourself. You approve surveillance packages. You authorize searches. You decide which targets deserve active pressure, which can be left dormant, and which might be turned into assets later. At first, the power feels intoxicating. Then it becomes procedural. That is worse, because once repression becomes routine, it becomes easier. You sign off on home searches in the morning, arrests in the afternoon, recruitment efforts before leaving for dinner. The machinery no longer needs your passion. It only needs your efficiency. At the bottom, the Stasi asks whether you can betray one person. At the top, it asks whether you can manage betrayal as a system. You are no longer gathering information, you are allocating pressure. Entire careers can be blocked because your office marked someone unreliable. A teacher can be removed, a student can lose a future, an artist can disappear professionally, a priest can become isolated, and you do all of it from behind a desk. But then history changes direction. In 1989, the wall falls. Crowds move on Stasi offices. Officers tear up documents, feed files into shredders, burn paper in courtyards, destroy what they can. But the system was too large and the archives too vast. Too much survives. Then comes the second collapse, not of the state, of secrecy. Files are opened. Neighbours discover neighbours informed on them. Husbands learn their wives reported on them. Children discover their parents had code names. Private life had never been private at all. And where are you in all this? Still alive. Still present. No longer feared in the same way, but not erased. Maybe you were prosecuted, maybe not. Many were not. The system was too broad, complicity too widespread, the transition too messy for justice to feel complete. You live quietly in reunified Germany. You buy groceries, you avoid certain streets, you occasionally recognize faces from the old world and pretend not to. The ideology is dead. The state you served is gone. The ladder that raised you has collapsed. But the files remain. And so does the thing the Stasi built most efficiently of all, permanent damage between people who once thought they knew one another. That is the final truth of the ladder. It does not end with power. It ends with exposure. Because in the end, the Stasi was not just a secret police service. It was a machine for turning suspicion into daily life. And if you climbed high enough inside it, you did not merely help the machine run. You became one of the men deciding who would be broken next.